Hopefully, because you're live, was geht nicht.
You could hear the mic and everything.
I could go on and see if I could see. I'll tell you if it's working.
What's it to go somewhere? This has to go in somewhere.
I took it out because it usually. Oh, you know what? Maybe 1 second.
Oh, now you see. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, Mehepton, we're starting Daf Yud Beis and Beis the Mishnah. So this Mishnah till the next Mishnah Daf Yud Aleph with Aleph is a lot about Trumas and Maisris, the Matonis we give to the Kohen. Let's start the Mishnah just as a very short akdome. When a person has a field, he first gives his bikurim, then he gives Truma to the Kohen, he gives Maiser to the Levi, then he gives Maiser Sheni or Maiser Oni. The Levi gives from his Maiser he received, the Levi gives Maiser to the Kohen. And then after the person, the Yisrael, is making his challah, his dough, he has to also give challah to the kohen. So before one gives away to the kohen the matonis, so the food that he's not allowed to eat is called tevel. Either it's called tevel truma, tevel l'mai. If you didn't give yet truma, it's going to be called tevel truma. If you didn't give meiser, it's tevel l'gabidini from meiser, or tevel l'gabidini from challah. That'll be a term we're going to have in our Gemara here. And then you also have, of course, a behema, a person shechts a behema, and it's a sirol, not it's a sirol, even bisman hazeh. You have to demat this kahuna, the foot, the leg, the cheek, and the kevel, the chayayim, and the zereh. Yeah. The shadow how to do today is shenanan dezach because the main problem is truma. I can sharang them. Yes, the main problem is truma because truma has a kedusha to it. Truma, the kain has to eat, it can't become tummy. And the Levi that gives from his ma'aser to the Kain is also called Truma, can become tummy. And therefore, today we don't have this. Today everyone's tummy. So therefore, it comes to the Truma, that we have to be careful. When it comes to the Levi, giving today Moshe Levi ma'aser to Yisrael, first of all, you have to bring it to Mitzvah Mechel. He has to bring out as a Levi. And then, and if not, then there's no Easter from you eating the ma'aser. So there's less of a problem. Only when it comes to those, and the Challah as well. But anyways, Challah is in Yisrael only. Okay, so the matonis are called the chalakim of the animal that goes to the kain is called the matone, and then the challah, as we said, the dough that you give a chelik of the dough to the kohen, that's called challah. The shaila is one allowed to give to separate truma and meiser on Shabbos? There'll be a mishnah later on Lamed Zayin that one is not allowed to separate on Shabbos and Yom Tov Mesakin. Yeah. Second, the Gemara they will go into it, or it looks like making something hektish that we'll get into later. But it's also Shabbos and Yom Tov to Shabbos imafresh truma and meiser. When it comes to Yom Tov, so everything eichel nefesh you're allowed to. So I'm allowed to give challah on Yom Tov, take separate challah because I'm allowed to make fresh dough on Yom Tov. Now the shaila is if separate challah, you can't eat your challah if you didn't separate challah yet. You can't eat your bread if you didn't separate challah yet because it's tevel. It's in Mishnah. Like well, you can't. You have to separate before you're going to eat it. Now you don't have to give it to the kohen before you eat it. Obviously, all your mat is kohen. You can separate for the kohen. You're allowed to go and eat what you have to eat, and then when you find the kohen, you give him the matonis. What's about the chalakim of the behemoth, the matonis? We're going to call the matonis. Means the zerei, the chayayim, and the keva. That behemoth you're allowed to eat from the behemoth before you separated the zerei, the chayayim, and the keva because you know where it is in the animal. Don't eat that chelik of the animal. That's all. So you could shech the animal. You could take the other chalakim of the animal. You could eat it, and the other and the matonis to the kohen you could always separate later. However, we can see in Rashi that one should behemoth before he eats even the other chalakim of the animal. He should separate the matonis to the kohen. Why? Because by mistake you might go ahead and eat. Now, even if you eat the chalakim to the kohen, there has no kedusha to it. It's not a big problem. But you're even an assay because it belongs to the kohen, so you're even an assay. But there's no eruv over there. Challah or any tevel, it's a eruv. It's a truma and chuli mixed together. Tevel. So you can now eat any chelik of any tevel. But the matonis of the behemoth, it's identifiable in those chalakim of the behemoth. Therefore, it's not a problem. Amikra din if you're very careful to eat those chalakim. Well, we shouldn't because you might come to beivin naseh. So upon Shabbos you're not allowed to. What's now? Who is going to about meilichin? What's about if you have a tevel, you have a matas for the kohen in your house? Am I allowed to go bring it to the kohen on Yom Tov? Now, bringing it to the kohen, this might be a gzeida because you might go ahead and be mafresh the truma. So if you have truma in your house, let's say before Shabbos already, that you're mafresh. So you have a barrel of wine for the kohen, which is a truma from all your many barrels. I didn't give it to the kohen. Come Shabbos, I simply want to go be melichin to the kohen. There's a native over there. He's even coming to my house. Should I give it to my Shabbos? Why not? You shouldn't do it. Why not? Because you might come to actually go be mafresh truma itself, which is also. How about Yom Tif? Now, Truma, you can't be mafresh on Yom Tif because there's no need to wait for Yom Tif. You could do it before Yom Tif. You're not enhancing anything from the food if you're going to wait till Yom Tif. There's no Terech HaNefesh over there. The rule by Truma Meiser is after Gemar Melacha. When there's Gemar Melacha, after there's a miruach, you make a pile of kernels. It's called the digun. Then you become a chuyiv when it comes to the grain. You become a chuyiv in Truma. Then there's a Gemar Melacha. Before Gemar Melacha, we'll learn you could maybe chilas adi, etc. But then the Gemar Melacha happened before Yom Tif. You're not doing because you can't do on Yom Tif the Melacha of digun. You can't do miruach. Work with your field on Yom Tif. So it was done already before. So why wouldn't you mafresh truma before Yom Tif? Therefore, you can't be mafresh truma on Yom Tif. If you forgot to do it before Yom Tif, now you want to go mafresh. You can't do that. There's no way. So there's no way you're going to be mechuyev truma on Yom Tif because you can't do the last melacha of the miruach on Yom Tif. We'll see later in the end of the Gemara here. There's going to be a hechetim tzolachayre that you could do the last malacha, and then does come a chiv of teruma. That's going to be the shayla later. We have a next one. Maybe we'll get to it today. But the teruma normally being you can't do the malacha of miruach, which is the last gemar malacha of the dagon on Yom Tif. So there's never a case where you're going to have to be mechuyev on Yom Tif. You must have been mechuyev either before Yom Tov or you're not mechuyev in Truma because you didn't finish the Gemar Melacha. If you were finished before Yom Tov, why were you mafresh before Yom Tov? So you can't mafresh Truma. However, challah, if a carrot, you want to have fresh bread on Yom Tov, you could go put the water and flour together, make dough, and at that moment you become a chuyev and taking challah. So what are you going to do? You have to mafresh challah on Yom Tov. So you mafresh challah on Yom Tov. The shayla is melichin to the kohen. I'm allowed to go give it? I can wait with the dough on the side and give it to the kohen after Yom Tif. Could you go give the kohen on Yom Tif and the challah? Maybe the same way truma you can't give it on Yom Tif. Why? You might be mafresh truma. Should I not be able to give the challah to the kohen on Yom Tif because I might be mafresh truma? That's a shy. Do you do that or not? Also, the other matanis of the animal. I'm allowed to shech the animal Yom Tif because you want to have fresh meat Yom Tif morning. You go shech the animal. Now, like we said, it's important to be mafresh those parts because you don't want to eat those parts. Yeah, even nasei. So you're going to separate those parts of the animal for the matan. Could I give it to the kohen for the same problem? I give it to the kohen on Yom Tif. Our geyser that what? You're going to go shech the animal. You have to shech on Yom Tif. You have to also be mafresh after you shech it on Yom Tif. But are you guys the same way? Teruma, you can't do it on Yom Tif. You guys are one after the other. That's going to be the Shad and Mishnah. But in the beis and the Gemara, we're going to have three opinions of how you understand the Shamis Ul Machlekes. Let's start our Mishnah Malzer. Bishama Imrim, Ein Lichin Chalo Matana is the tunyon, the challah, which you're allowed to go and create dough on Yom Tif, and now you be mafresh the challah. And matana is referring to the chalakim of the animal given to the kohen. And that also you could check on Yom Tif. So could you be meilich? The tip to be mafresh them, it's called hurmu, to pick it up, to separate. The zichedafn, you can't eat your challah, your bread if you don't, and even like this whole good animal, you should also do it. But the shad could you be melichin to the kohen? Before the Teish says not just melichin, I think it says the word is not just rather taste on top of Pirish Lamdaf Kemelichin do Adin in Yavakin the basis. So even Meirich in that as well. It's not just the idea of transporting it. It's don't give it to him because you might go ahead and the Gzeir again. But let's go out the mission. Pishame ein melichin chal matanis l'kein b'yomtiv bein shehurmu me'emesh. Whether you separated it yesterday, that means it must have been shechted yesterday, or you made the dough yesterday and you separated chal yesterday, and it's in your house and you forgot to came before yomtiv. Whether you did that, you can't give that to the kohen. Or whether you separate the rum to separate today, you also can't give that to the kohen. He says no, you're allowed to. In both cases, you could. Bishami told this Hillel, Rashi said it's not a typical Gzeir Shava because it's all speaking Gzeir Rabbanon. Gzeir Shava is the Kedin. Rashi explains to us that's not just a lashon. He's using l'chayr. You can compare one to the other. That's a mitzvah. Gzeir Shava l'chayr. Chalu matonois maton l'kein. the challah and the matanis of the animal is called the category of from the 24 matanis we get to the kayin. Utruma, and the truma is also a matanal kayin. So kashem shein moilichin es truma, the same as we explained before. You're not allowed to give the kayin the truma separate, even if you did it before Shabbos Yom Tov. You can't give it on Shabbos Yom Tov. Kach ein moilichin es as a matanis. You should also do matanis. He says both. Amalem is Hillel. No, I have a very big difference. Lay, it's not the case. In Amarta b'Teruma, the reason why you should not be able to give the coin Teruma on Yom Tiv, because Shein is a koi b'Haramosa. Rashi says a koi doesn't mean Zaka, means Rashoy. See, Rashi the writer means here, the Taich's writer is a koi, doesn't mean Zoiche, means you're able to, because you're not even able to separate it on Yom Tiv. And therefore, your geyser, if you're going to give it to the kohen, even if you're separated before Yom Tif, you might come and actually go and separate it on Yom Tif, which is an isur. However, Toimru b'matanis, so say by the other matanis, you actually are allowed to separate, and you should separate them on Yom Tif before you go in to eat it. So how could you say, you should not give the kohen the truma, because you might come and actually be mafresh truma, which mafresh is not allowed. But to go and say, don't give the kohen the other matanis, where what you're not geyser, you might go be mafresh those matanis, because that's how you're allowed to mafresh on Yom Tif. No, but you guys have the truma. That's too far of excited. That's machik b'sham. We can do Rashi in the Mishnah, at least Rashi in the Mishnah. Even though to be mafresh the chalo and also the matana is mutter. The Chacham did not allow you to actually go bring it to the kohen. Ella, rather, tikun letaken isase hitirule v'leyeser. They were only allowed to you to do in you're attacking your isa, your dough, but not more. You must separate because you have tevel there. Now it's already chulin, you can eat the dough, but the kain you give it to Yom Tiv, you give to the kain his dough, don't come on Yom Tiv itself. Matanis, what is matanis? Azroya, l'chayim, with the three parts of the foot and the cheek and the stomach. This goes to the kain. Afheim, also them had a masan hutru loy. They allowed the yid to be mafrish those parts of the animal. Why do you have to mafresh? Like we explained before, eat the other parts of the animal. Why do you have to cut those parts off? Cut it also after. We were commanded to separate these. How are you going to eat the rest of the basar? Now, the difference between the matanis of the animal than all the other ones are, and not all the other ones, many of them are like truma ma'ases. It doesn't become tevel. Not that the animal is tevel until you're going to mafresh the matanis of the animal. No, by the isa is tevel until you mafresh the isa. Here, so why b'chlal? Like you said, separating on Yom Tov Shabbos is tikkun. So look here, why allow you to go separate the parts of the animal? Loza says they're in the animal. Don't be misaken. Take the animal, cut the parts you need of the animal, cook it up for Yom Tov, and then after Yom Tov actually be made him. Says Rashi explained this now. How even by the animal it's important to be made him to be mafresh those parts on Yom Tov itself and not wait till after Yom Tov. It's masbet for us. Why? Because the first is saying it's not tevel, so you have no problem with other parts of the animal. Let's again. It's not tevel if those parts remain stuck to the animal. You go eat the other parts. However, if you didn't separate all the other basar from these parts, he might come to eat it. You're being over in a say because it belongs to the kain. Therefore, the Chacham allowed us to actually be made. It means to separate those parts. But like Bishami says, not to transport them to the kain because that's not necessary. You might just exade it, like we see later. But kulon mishum gzeida dein magbin oisam. Rashi says you have the goysa bach. The aleph is magbin turuma. Yeah, like we said, the reason why you can't do this because you might come and to be mafresh turuma, and mafresh turuma is not allowed. Next, that's Gzeir Shava. Rashi says it's not the regular Gzeir Shava. But Gzeir Shava is a din min Torah. Gzeir Shava lav dafke. Why? It's not dafke the term Gzeir Shava as we know it. The kulam the rabbanon goes. It's all the rabbanon. You don't see things there. Elo dumi the Gzeir Shava with the rabbanon. It's similar. So the Mishnah happens also Gzeir Shava. But Torah the Kayim, Mishamai says the same way. The truma is to the kain, and this matan is to the kain, so we should compare them both, and both should not be allowed to give to the kain. These are only esrim be'arba matnis kunein. It all belongs to the 24 matans we give to the kain. Shem melichin, so Bisham is the same way you can't be melichin the truma, so to also not the matana and the challah. And this taka beis Hillel is made that you're not allowed to be meilich the teruma that you're already separated before Yom Tov to the kohen, as we said, because you might come to actually mafresh. The Bahamay Disalon, this is Bishamai talking to Lashon of talking to beis Hillel. In this, you agreed to us. That's Bishamai telling beis Hillel, Shaharimi Esmail Hugbaha. How do you have teruma today on Yom Tov? Because you must have separated it yesterday. And now you want to give it to the Cain. You agree to us, you can't, because you might come and be Makbir today. So the beis Hillel says no. It's a very big difference, because by the matana is and the challah, you are allowed to actually be mafresh them on Yom Tov. So who cares if you come to maf? We're going to say that shani zakoy. So Rashi says zakoy doesn't mean zoiche. It means rashoy, able, allowed. So when it comes to the truma itself, the Torah did not give a Yerushus, the Chum did not give Yerushus, the mafresh truma on Yom Tov. However, the challah and the matanos, the Chum did give Yerushus to do it, therefore you can bring it to the Cain. Who cares? There's no gzeira. Okay, we're going to start the Gemara. Just it's not complicated, but not verstehen though. There's a having in the Gemara and there's maskane. But when you have truma on Yom Tov, we're speaking here, when did you get this truma? Speaking of we see here Bain and Bain. It says Bain Shahurmu Esmail, whether you separate yesterday or today. Now, when did you shecht it? You can learn the Mishnah, could have the Maskana. It's both speaking about you shechted it out of Yom Tif. So one is you shechted the Behem out of Yom Tif. A. B. Hurmu out of Yom Tif. And now on Yom Tif, the Mishnah telling Bishami says, don't bring it to the Kayim. What does it mean on Yom Tif? Not you shechted on Yom Tif. You were not mafresh it on Yom Tif. You shechted it before Yom Tif. And you weren't mafresh yet the chalakim of the challah to dough. You made the dough before Yom Tif. The animal you shechted before Yom Tif. And now comes Yom Tif, you're mafresh it on Yom Tif. So maybe Bisham is telling us whether you were mafresh the challah on Yom Tif, what you made before Yom Tif, or whether you were mafresh the challah matanis before Yom Tif, what obviously you made before Yom Tif, and now it's Yom Tif, don't bring it to the kohen. However, maybe Bisham is saying if you shechted it on Yom Tif, or you made the dough on Yom Tif, Bisham will agree to beis Hillel that you're able to give it to the kohen. And then you shecht and your mafresh kohen. So that's not to happen. The maskana is going to be that Bishamai agrees to beis Hillel that if you're going to shecht it on Yom Tif and make the dough on Yom Tif, you're allowed to go, and of course you have to be mafresh it, and you're allowed to give it to the kohen also. What does Bain here, Bain mean, is both speak about you shechted it before Yom Tov. So Bain is that you should have really been mafresh it, and you couldn't even give it. You could have given it to the kohen already before Yom Tov. Didn't have to wait. So one is you shechted before, but you mafresh it on Yom Tov. And one is you shechted before, and you mafresh it before Yom Tov, but you didn't give it to the kohen yet. But in the Havim, that's the maskane. In the Havim, the Sham is more machmir. The Havim, the Sham is machmir. He says no. The Mishnah read that I feel those geschochten on Yom Tov itself. And you did kedin, you did everything kedin. You do it and you mafresh. Even there, Bishamai says you should not go and give it to the kohen. That's how we're going to start the Gemara. So there can be three possibilities. You shechted on Yom Tov, and you mafresh on Yom Tov. You shechted before Yom Tov, you mafresh on Yom Tov. You shechted before Yom Tov, you mafresh on Yom Tov. Before Yom Tov. But the question about giving to the, but in all cases you didn't give it yet, and that's our discussion. We're going to have three Tanoim who discuss the Machlekes and Baldim. Tanarabon. Because Solke Daito, the Yeshiva, they first understood the Taich in the Mishnah, Shahurmu Mehayoim. That today, when it says Hurmu Mehayoim, Vishenishchetu Mehayoim. And it was shechted today. And even on that, Bishami says don't, right? But that's one of the husband. When the Mishnah said when it said the Mishnah it was separated yesterday, it was all that must be shenishchetu me'amesh. It was also shechted yesterday. That's how we thought the pshat in the Mishnah is. And if so, mani must listen. Who does the Mishnah follow? Lei Rabbi Yasi, lei Rabbi Yehuda, ela chayrim. We'll see on the Beis, and to come taste our Mishnah can't for sure follow Rabbi Yasi. Like we'll see, Rabbi Yasi has a whole different understanding of the machlekes. But between Rabbi Yehuda and the chayrim, the Mishnah will only follow the chayrim. Then the Gemara will say it's possible to learn the Mishnah to follow Rabbi Yehuda and the Acherim. But now that's the happening. Where do we see our Mishnah could only go according to the Acherim? Let's learn the Beis. Tanakos learned the Beis. Rabbi Yehuda said, Beis Shammai, beis Hillel did not argue al hamatonos about the matonos. Before we say, but it doesn't just mean the matonos. The name also means a challah, but he just says the matonos. Shahurmu mi erev yom tiv shemayilichin im hamatonos shahurmu mi hayoim. This is a new concept, not so negeya, but it says here that if you have in front of you matonos an animal that you shechted today on yom tiv and you separated today, which that we'll see clearly allowed to bring it over to the kohen, but you also have left over from yesterday matonos to the kohen. So in this, Beis Shammai will agree to Beis Hillel that you could give that truma you took yesterday, that matana, you could bring it if you bring it together with the other one. So gleich zet saying that this is not according to our Mishnah. According to our Mishnah, the way we learned the Havamina, Beis Shammai says you're never allowed to give even the one that you shechted today. You can't get to the kohen. But right away saying that they both hold that I'm allowed to give matana from yesterday, bring it to the kohen with the matonis of things shechted today. That means today's thing for sure you can bring. That they both agree with, says Rabbi Yehuda. So again, lo inechel Beis Shammai beis Hillel. They're not arguing. Al matonis shurmum out of yom tiv matonis you have in your house out of yom tiv. You didn't bring it out of yom tiv. Shema lichin you're allowed to bring it. Ima matonis shurmum hayoim with matonis that were given from today. Apparently, there's not just a gzeda there because you went from today. And also v'shenishchutu mi hayoim. Yeah, that was separated today because it was shechted today. This they're not arguing. They're arguing. That means you shechted it yesterday. You separated yesterday, and now you want to just these matanos bring to the kohen on Yom Tiv. So this Beis Shammai you don't bring it. So you do bring it. And then it goes the Hemshech. And says the same thing as the Mishnah. Beis Shammai would then they proved it. Chala or matanos is matanah say chala inside the matanos of the animal is the category of matanos of kohen. Truma matanah kohen also truma that we give to the kohen. Kashem shem malichnas truma kachem malichnas matanos. So that's what we say in the Mishnah. Let me answer no. Lo you can't compare imartem with truma when it comes to truma shein is a kohen because you're not able to be mafresh on Yom Tov itself. Therefore, you should not bring it on Yom Tov. But also tell matanos you can say the same thing about matanos. She's a kohen, but also you're allowed to do it on Yom Tov. This is how Rabbi Yehuda learns the machlekes. So gleich, Rabbi does not do the mission the way we have Saturday because it's clear. Beis Shammai holds that if it's shechted today, you can bring it today. You can even bring yesterday's thing if you bring it together with today's. But today's for sure you could bring. So it's nish for Rabbi Yehuda. Now, Rabbi Yossi for sure not. We'll see Rabbi Yossi has a whole different way of understanding. Rabbi Yossi says the chalal there's no machlekes about matanis and about challah. Machlekes is God about Turum itself. We took it for granted now when we said in the Mishnah Lamed Zayin. But here we took it for granted, to be moilich the Turum to the Kohen. We took it for granted. So I'll help him. But Rabbi says, no, whole goof is the machlekes. The machlekes is about the Turum itself. When it comes to the Maton and the Challah, is that Kula made the Miketz. He's more makel. When it comes to the Challah and the Maton, you've made we still that you're allowed to bring it to the Kohen and Yom Tiv. Now, what's the argument about Turum? And for sure, it's not our mission. Yeah.
What's the problem with this?
No. That's just it. So we signed before that. Melichin said you might go and be mafresh. That's the word. Shammai compares it. The same way, Truma you can't be moilich. Why? It takes not just moilich, it means even giving. Why? The gistas from Kayan. So if you allow a yid to give to the Kodesh Truma, someone else sees Truma. I'm telling you, the person is going to go do that. So you guys ought to, you might come be mafresh. Even though, like we're saying, the matonis and the challah, you're allowed to be mafresh today. You are mafresh. Look, it's all gzeda. Zay mafresh, I don't care if I care. Because Shammai says in case of that, ought to the truma. He makes it to the shovel like he compares it to the truma. But the truma itself, the gzeda, is possibly like a mafresh truma itself. Is that give him the kain to eat? Even if it's by your table and he's sitting and eating his wine, drinking his wine, or gives him a case, that's from the Truma, wine to deal. The other guests think I'm giving him a case of wine from Truma. Today I was mafresh at Truma, I was mafresh from a barrel of wine, I gave him a cup of wine, so I did it today. Someone else will go and also mafresh Truma Yom Tov, the tarnish. Okay. Taste explains. Malichin doesn't just mean taking it over, also even by the Nishtup. Okay, so this is the Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi, like you said, says B'chlal the Homachlekes is not even like our Mishnah. It's about Truma, Shvek, Matonis, and Challah. That's like Yossi. So, but the writer. Rabbi Yossi, Leinech l'ku Beis Shammai beis Hillel. They're not arguing ala matonos. Look at the matonos, the challah and the matana as the shemelichin. That's the zicher. You can metric and big deal. Leinech l'ku ala truma. Now, what's going to be this far? Now here, Beis Hillel is the one making the Gzeder Shaveh. Beis Hillel is telling us you're allowed to give the kohen the truma that you mafresh before Yom Tiv. You could give him the wine on Yom Tiv. He's sitting in your house. You give him a cup of truma if you took it before Yom Tiv. So Beis Hillel is going to make the Gzeder Shaveh. Leheter. The same way matones you could give to the kohen on Yom Tiv, so truma can also give to the kohen on Yom Tiv. And Misham will be the one to say, how can you compare the two? Maybe matones you could give on Yom Tiv because you could be mafresh on Yom Tiv. But truma, you should not be able to give on Yom Tiv because you can't be mafresh on Yom Tiv. So you might go ahead and be mafresh on Yom Tiv itself. Let's put it inside. The kachay is Hillel donim, and here according to Hillel's own is being done. Chalo matones, the chal matones are maton lekain. It's all because maton lekain. Utruma maton lekain is also maton lekain. So kashem shemelichin es maton is the same way you could actually give the kohen. The maton is separated today. Kach melichin es atum give also truma is separated yesterday. Now amru lem b'shamai. How can you compare? You know why you're allowed to give the kohen the matonis is separated because you could separate. Why? Because what's to say? She's a kohen b'haramason because you're allowed to today. You're allowed to today be made him to be mafresh the challah and the matonis. Tell me, truma, you should not be able to give the kohen truma. Why she'ain as a kohen b'haramason? You're not allowed to be mafresh truma on Yom Tiv. So therefore, Shammai says you should not go ahead and give the kohen also on Yom Tiv. What's the acherim? The acherim seem more vague. They don't go into the pratim. So therefore, that acherim will fit with our Mishnah. Acherim say, acherim is Rab Meir. Loi nechleku b'shamai b'shila. There's a ma'aser Gemara says that they called them acherim after. So why take sometimes they say acherim, so they call Rab Meir. There's different stories about it. I saw them sitting what did they say? So that when does the Gemara, when the Shasti see Rab Meir, there was a ma'aser that happened that the punish Rab Meir to start to call him acherim. So what, the memories that he said before this sipur, he's called Rab Meir, and the teres he gave over after the sipur, he's called acherim. Nochasvare, Rab Meir was a chatalmud from Acher. Elisha Acher, Elisha Maravuya, Acher. So the deiche the svara, they say that the teres he gave b'shem Elisha Maravuya, they call him acherim. But then they say the dechet doesn't. But there's a few sorts of why sometimes we see acherim and say acherim is a man. Acherim eimrim leinech lekubisham b'shilel ala turuma she'ein melichin. They're not arguing that turuma you can't take like Rabbi Yehuda said before the mission. Turuma everyone agrees you can't. Leinech lekubisham ala matonis. Only the bottom of the Shaba eimrim ein melichin is lein melichin. The difference between him and between the acherim and Rabbi Yasi is and Rabbi Yehuda. Acherim are very vague. They're very general. They say B'Shamai says, "Ei melichin." Period. Don't make a difference. Fire Yom Tov, Noch Yom Tov. Oh, so apparently, like our Havamina, our mission is speaking about that. B'Shamai says everything is not allowed to be given to the kohen, whether Geshach non Yom Tov, Geshach Fire Yom Tov, separated. So Acherim being it's more closed and doesn't give you prop like Rabbi Yehuda. So it seems that that's going to be like our mission. So if, like the Salkadaitik that we said, that the B'Shamai doesn't allow any matonis to be given to the kohen, even if it was geschochten on Yom Tov itself, is going to be like the acherim. So the acherim, what's your schlecht? It's like the acherim. So he says, he brings the whole Hamshech also. So acherim, matonis, the argument of matonis, B'Shamai say, melichin, melichin. So lema acherim he. Let's say the Mishnah is acherim, but later Rabbi Yehuda. So my Rabbi says no. Now you see the different shot the Mishnah. Who said you're right in your Kesokrat acherim shot the Mishnah? Maybe our Mishnah also saying B'Shamai says Geshochten on Yom Tov you're allowed to give to the kohen. We had a Sokadaitik. So Mikotoni state in the Mishnah Shohurmu Mahayim V'Shenishchetu Mahayim. That you added. It doesn't say when it was Geshochten. So maybe the pshat the Mishnah is when it says Hurmu Mahayim doesn't mean it was Geshochten. It was Geshochten yesterday. And that the B'Shamai is arguing, and then it would fit in line with Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe both cases are you shechted it yesterday, and the shaila is, and you separate. Are they separate? Yes, it's separated today, and you don't give it to the kid. However, B'Shamai is going to agree that if you shechted it today, you can for sure give it to the kid, and then it follows Rabbi Yehuda. So then Eba say, "Lema Rabbi Yehuda." In that case, it's Rabbi Yehuda not acherim. Now, is that so? No, I feel acherim. Maybe it's even acherim. Acherim say mashma loshen. Even if you shechted at Yom Tov, you shouldn't give it to the kohen. Says no, maybe acherim are not saying that. Acherim bahach ubahanoch the nishchetu mi emesh. Even acherim are only saying When Acherim say as a poshit, Rabbi Shammai says don't give it to the Kayan, he doesn't mean all matanis. He means from all those that were shechting yesterday, whether you were mafresh yesterday or today. Ebazei, what's machlekes of Rabbi Yehuda and Acherim saying the same thing. Sagt die Gemara, Ebazei. The only difference is going to be between the two is if you can bring it together with the other. Remember, at the beginning, Yehuda said that you have a ton from yesterday, and you can bring it together with tons from today. And then Achem is arguing. This Achem say no. I agree with you with the whole din that Mishamai says, and if even Mishamai says if you geshochten today, then you could give it to the Kain today. It's no problem. And the Machlek is only about if it was geshochten yesterday. He's arguing with Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says even if you have geshochten yesterday, Mishamai says. You could bring it to the Kohen together with the meat, the matos you have from today. And Acherim say, no, Rabbi Shammai will hold anything that you shechted yesterday and you have matonis present, don't give it to the Kohen, even if you're going to transport it together with the matonis you have from today. That's the only difference. Our mission is going to be like Acherim and Rabbi Yehuda, not like Rabbi Yossi. That's part of the Gemara. Weiter. Doch ein bisschen weiter, yeah? Yes. Go further. The Gemara, we do my Shmuel, who halacha Rabbi Yossi got this. Rabbi Yossi was makel over here, the middle, not like our Mishnah. The halacha is not like our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says that in Truma, Allah halten about Truma, you're not allowed to bring to the Kayin. Matanis is a machlekes, and Rabbi Yossi says no. Matanis Truma is not machlekes, and Matanis there's no argument, and it's more kuladik. And the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. Halacha is like Rabbi Yossi. They have tuvi, bread of the chemia. Havli garva, the chamer. Garva is a barrel. Chamer is wine. The truma. He had a barrel of wine of truma on Yom Tiv. Also, like Rabbi Yosef came to Rabbi Yosef. Amalei told him, "Mahu, what is the din la'am tuye likeyen ha'idna to bring it to the keyen ha'idna haint yes." Amalei hachem Rabbi Yehuda Mashmu halacha Rabbi Yosef. And everybody say megmanya. So even truma, like Misham, but like Beis Hillel. And Rabbi Yosef says that Beis Hillel holds that truma you can even bring to the keyen. Like them, the machlekes like truma alein. Unachas Beis Hillel as that you could bring it. So Rabbi say truma that you of course you shouldn't do today. You can't be mafresh. You mafresh yesterday. You could be give to the keyen to the kosher kamachim. You can give the matanis to the keyen that you shechted the isla you made today. That's a din halacha l'maisa. Okay, ushpezichne the Rave bar Rav Chonon havulei asuraiso de chardele. The ushpezichne is the host of Rave bar Rav Chonon had asuraiso like lashon osur. Osur is bound together. A bundle of what? Of chardele, mustard plants, but it wasn't yet processed. So amalei mahu lifuruche umeichel minayu biyomtiv. The furuche means could I crush it with my hands and eat the mustard seeds, raw seeds on Yom Tif. What would be the problem? The problem, the dosh. Dosh is to thresh. When you take the chaff and you separate the chaff from the kernels, that's called threshing. If the chaff is not edible. If it's edible and type of thing, then it's a different story. That's not called dosh anymore. That's called dosh. You separate the chaff, the clip it.
Crush it?
So first you bang it, because if you crush it, you're going to crush also the kernels. The kernels you want to hold on to later to grind to make flour from it. So in the stalk of wheat, you have to bang the stalk of wheat. In the stalk of wheat, there's little kernels and like a type of straw shaft. What? Oh no, so both. The chard also has the plant also has that cover. Maybe it's called in English. It's called a jacket when it comes to different the kidneys. But the good is you have the stalk of wheat. In the stalk of wheat, the outer part, the non-edible part, that is more straw. You give it to the animals, to animal food, animal fodder, and you have the little kernels inside. And you have to get to the kernels. What do you do first? First, you bang it in a soft way to initially separate. It's called the shaft from the kernels. The shaft, it's straw you want to get rid of. That's first dosh. Then the next thing you do is going to be zoide. Zoide is the same idea. Zoide is winnowing. You take it up you throw it up, and the wind blows away the straw, and the kernels come down. Then you take those kernels and you put them into. Then like with a miruach. So first miruach means you make piles of kernels, and gabi hilchis truma already. I mentioned now already. When you smooth out the piles of kernels, it's called dogan, it's called grain. That's called gemar melocha of the grain. And later you're going to go and grind it and make flour, and then it's boiler later on. That's really doing something. So there's two melachas we're going to discuss over here. The separating the chaff from the kernels is a melacha of dosh. Now you're allowed to do melachas on Yom Tov to be able to eat, right? but he's doing it. But the shaila is, you could have done it before Yom Tif. Okay, and let's do it with his hands also. He's not doing it with the regular keli doing it. So he asked the shaila, could I be mafruchi b'yadayim? Is it a malacha of dash that I should have done this yesterday, a different amount to do today and eat from the kernels, or do we say not? What's the shaila?
The practical techina. You want to do techina on Yom Tov.
So you have the whole, but you
You're
have
not allowed to.
what you said. You mean
On Shabbos, definitely not, because dash. If Yom Tov,
Yom Tif. But the Shabbos, it's fresher than if you do it on Yom Tif itself. If you do it
that's-
before,
that's
maybe it's going to
different,
know. Maybe it's
What, China?
techina.
if you do it before, it makes a difference. Stop, no. Okay.
Nah, yeah.
Okay, well, let's go right. So he says, so Shaila, he didn't know what the halach is. He didn't know the halach. So also came to Rav. He came to Rav. Rav told him, this is the din. Meilin meliles u'mefarchen kittis b'yomtiv. That's meilin is rubbing the shaft to get separated or to eat it. And mefarchen, same idea, crushing kidneys when it comes to kidneys on Yom Tif to get to the beans. Here you're getting to the kernels, right? But you're not using Yom Tif. Okay. Eisvei, we're soon connected to our Gemara. Let's write it up. Eisvei, l'chayra, on this din, Abaye, l'chayra, we see from this upcoming Tesefta, l'chayra, still to our din that we just said now. Ha'moyle melilus mi'erev Shabbos. Now on Shabbos, for sure, one is not allowed to be moyle melilus on Shabbos. For sure not. Because there's no Eichel Nefesh there. Shabbos, you can't do the malacha, finished. But you did it before Shabbos. Before Shabbos, I went ahead and rubbed off the shaft, and now I have kernels. Now, I didn't do the second part, winnowing. I didn't do yet zoyre. So the shaila is, could I do a shtickle zoyre b'shinui, not with the regular shovel doing zoyre? Could I take it in my hands and throw it up into the other hand? So unfortunately, throw it to the same hand, and the wind will take it away. It's just called a shinui matur Shabbos. That's what he's saying. So he said, if you did the melilus already before Shabbos, that was a problem. You could do menafeich, means blowing it. Yeah, but it means the wind will blow it away. Rashi said, it will blow away, but you're doing it, you're actually throwing it up in your hands. He said, you're allowed to do this. These are actually describes these kalim that are used in order that you shouldn't do. Okay, next thing. So it's giving you a case first. But look how he formulates his case. The file is, you did Melilus out of Yom Tiv. Why did he say out of Yom Tiv? If you're allowed to do Melilus Yom Tiv itself, Zokshin, that's going to be the Shaila. But let's go weiter. However, Shabbos, we said, if you did Melilus before Shabbos, you're allowed to do Kalachayad, the Zoyre, right? And then he goes weiter. If you did the Melilus before Yom Tiv, out of Yom Tiv, then Lemachar Menafech al Yad. Al Yad means actually means doing very little, not a lot. Even with those kalim, you could still do the Zoyre with those kalim. A little bit tav, not with a big board, because that looks like you're doing it to preserve it for after Yom Tiv. Not with a sieve, with a regular kalim meant for that, you shouldn't do it that way. Now, look at the Bryce that the Sefter said. Why did he have to say you did Melilus out of Yom Tiv? Why Shabbos you did the Melilus? Because you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos itself. And you want to formulate a case. The case trying to speak here is about the Zoyre. The din of the Sefter is this Shvegen Dosh. Shvegen Malach of Zayre. Discussing Zayre. Miyad al Yad. Do it a little bit quantity or do it in a way with your hands. But how he leads up to that case of leading to the Zoyre, he says, by Shabbos, he says that you did the Melila, the Malacha from before, you did it out of Shabbos. Fine. By Yom Tif, according to the Ameda before, you didn't have to say you did the Melila before Yom Tif. According to Rava, the Melilas could be done on Yom Tif itself. So why did the Tana not say, Amel Melilas be Yom Tif, and your Shailas how to do Zoyre, how to do winnowing to get rid of the shaft. So you should know, do it. You could even do it with this kalim, with the konen, but don't do it with the kvara. But because the Braisa says you did the Melilas before Yom Tif, is the chayra how the Braisa. I'm a tarnish ton Melilas. You're not allowed to do Melilas on Yom Tif itself. A kasha Rava said you're allowed to do Melilas on Yom Tif. So in the shpezichin of the Damed came to ask him. I went to Rava. Rava said you could. The chayra you can't. And for the Gemara, no, that is Gerat Yom Tif. You could do Melilas on Yom Tif. But why did the Beraisa say you did it out of Yom Tif? Because they have to the Reisha. The Reisha said already out of Shabbos, Who's not out of Shabbos? So he's saying also on Yom Tif, Don't forget the din of the kavanah. The Tana wasn't to tell us the din about Meir Melilis. The Tana would say, "I don't think I did Meir Melilis. I did about Disha, Shabbat, Disha Yom Tov. You should know Shabbat Torah Meir Melilis. Yom Tov make me. That would be a whole different thing. The Tana can say that Yom Tov could do it. But I don't think the zweite malacha, the malacha of Zayda. So he just as an introduction to the Zayda, he's giving you a case. So the case by Shabbos must be you Meir Melilis out of Shabbos. Yom Tov taket shaykh to be done on Yom Tov itself. But you bound the Reisha spoke out of Shabbos. Get to make the Hemshech on Yom Tov. If you did it before Yom Tov, you should know on Yom Tov itself you could do the Zayda in this way. But not that he means to tell you the Mela has to be done out of Yom Tov. Okay, let's see. First for Shaila. So Dr. Yamada, Lechemer of Yom Tov, be Yom Tov loy. Lechemer kum teis Yom Tov. You can't do Meir Melilis. Like everyone, I feel it. You can even say be Yom Tov. You're allowed to be Meir Melilis on Yom Tov. Like Rabbi said. Was steht in the Sefer der Chetimtzo as a Meir Melilis given out of Yom Tov. The ton the Reishim out of Shabbos because the Tana said when he spoke about Shabbos and then you must do Melilis before Shabbos. Tana said for never out of Yom Tov, but really you're allowed to do the Melilis on Yom Tov also. So now this is all a lead up to the next kasha here. And the shaila is in Cain Matzino Trumish is a koyb to Mas Baharamasam. The Tanan lay in my mind to Trumish is a koyb Baharamasam Chulu. Shaila like this. Now the whole premise, the whole Ma'aseh Mishnah was that what do we say? That Truma, the Gemara Malacha is out of Shabbos. The Baal the Gemara Malacha is out of Shabbos. So you should have went and did and gave your Truma to the Kayan. First of all, separated out of Shabbos and give it to the Kayan out of Shabbos. On Shabbos, you can never separate Truma because you're metaken. So L'chayda and Shabbos. Also Yom Tif L'chayda also. So because you don't have a Hechetim, because most of the time, if you're doing with all the kernels and everything else, it has to be done all before Yom Tif. If I'm going to find you a case that the Gemara Melacha is able to be done on Yom Tif itself, so right away, it's the Chiyuv of Truma became when on Yom Tif itself. Eba says you should be able to take Truma on Yom Tif as well. The same way by Chala. You're allowed to be Tatum and take Challah, made him Challah on Yom Tov. Why? Because you're allowed to go ahead and put flour into water on Yom Tov. And at that moment, you have a chiyuv to take Challah. So if I'm going to show you on Yom Tov, you're allowed to do a certain melacha, that's Gemar melacha of a grain, certain grains, and then it becomes then mechuyev and truma. I shall also have to take truma on Yom Tov. So what does the Mishnah say? We don't find anywhere truma is taken on Yom Tov. According to us over here, Meila Meliles, what's Meila Meliles? It's the Gemar Meloche of taking off the shaft of those kernels. You're allowed to, according to that, it says you're allowed to do it on Yom Tiv. If you're not allowed to do it on Yom Tiv, there's no shaila. You're never going to come to a Gemar Meloche on Yom Tiv. But according to that, now that was Mechadish. That Meila Meliles beyond if you're allowed to do it. And that is also the Gemar Meloche of eating the snack of eating these kernels. The moment you made the Meliles, you're now mechayiv truma. So then you should be able to take truma. I have a chetimtza case where you're mechayiv to take truma on Yom Tiv, and just like challah, and you're allowed to do it. That's a shah of the Gemara. Let's read inside the third to last line. No, second last line. In fact, the Gemara in Kene Bazei Matzinu Truma Shazakoi Baramoson. We find now that if you're allowed to Melilis and Yom Tiv, so that's the Gemara Melocha. So now it's Rashoy. You're allowed to be taken Truma on Yom Tiv. Who said now the Tanan Al Mishnah im loy mamartim but Truma shein is okay Baramoson. We took it as a fact that there's never a hechetim, so a Truma should be taken on Yom Tiv. That Gemara lay kasha. Now we have lay kasha next to me. Did Gimel Amud Aleph? Rabbi Yehuda. What's machlekes? We have whole gufa. We get to Truma. Let's learn the rice inside or the masber outside. The time under the rice, hichnis shibalin lasis mem isa. If someone gathered and took a shibalin to stalks of grain, to wheat to make an isa to make dough, oichel mehem aray. You're allowed to eat achilas aray because we didn't. We'll see soon. There's no gemar malachat in the regular way. Upatur. And you're not chayiv to take truma. If you gathered the stalks of shibolim not to make out of it isa, not to create kernels later on to make flour, later on to make dough. No, to eat the kernels as a snack. To eat the kernels as a snack. So Rabbi Mechayiv Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda Pater. So let's listen. This is the din. The din is, like we said, you have the halacha is that you become chuyiv in teruma when you make a dog, when you do miruach on the pile of grain of the kernels. Now, what happens if you machnis? So if you took them in the shibolim. Now, shibolim you're not chayvin teruma yet. Because you're not machis shibolim. You don't gather the shibolim. You first do the dosh. Then you separate the kernels from the shaft. Then you take all the kernels, and the kernels you make a pile, and that's your ma'asef. You gather them together. This person something different. He was ma'asef. He gathered all the shibolim together.
The last shelf, 3 shelves, you see 2 of them there. Just put it back when you finish.
So he gathered the shibolim. He gathered shibolim. So there's no chiv of truma yet. He gathered shibolim in order later on to make out of this bread, to make out of it iso. So there, being that the shibolim was still there, you're allowed to take snacks and eat it beif and arik. What happens if you gathered lemoilon b'shibolim? A moilon is you're not gathering to make dough out of it. You're gathering to be able to take snacks. So that is the derech of gathering, the derech of bringing together the wheat in order to eat it as snacks is la'asvan to bring it together b'shibalim, not to make out of it kernels. You're not making piles of kernels there. So there's a shaila l'chayda. If I'm gathering the b'shibalim, but my kavana is that I'm not gathering for the isa but l'meilon. To do is say that you have to wait until there's the separate, the kernels separate, and then it'll be a chiyuv truma. Or already now being the shteiger is that this is called the gemar melacha. That's the end of it. Because now every time I'm hungry, I'll take a shiboilus and take out the. So maybe now it's already the chiyuv truma already started. That's machlekes tanoim over here. Machlekes tanoim is going to be: do we say if you bound by your kavan is a meilon, so the gemar melacha is already b'shas shema'asef et b'shibolim also. That's machlekes. So let's do it again. Hichnis shibolim. You took them in, not in the regular steiger. You took them while they're in the shibolim, in the stalks, but it lasts them isa. It's not more. It's not a regular thing. Normally, if you're making isa, you take it out of the stalk. But that's what you did. In that case, kula alamayda that it's not gemar malacha because it's not how you do it. Therefore, oichalem aray. You can eat from it snacks upatur from taking truma. However, if you again hichnis bishibalim but lemoilu b'melilos, the kavan of why you gather bishibalim, and that's taking the shtege that when you're doing milis, that's how you gather your grains. Rabbi Mechayev, Rabbi said at that moment, even though it's bishibalim, it's still going to be mechayev in truma. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda pointed to say it's potter. We'll see some why. Or the Rashi says the limud from psukim. Later we'll see. Later we'll say the limud of psukim. What's the svaras machlekes? Why he holds? Yeah, why he holds not? Al Kapana. What do you see from here? And according to Rabbi, there's a chiyuv of teruma, but according to this, there's no chiyuv teruma. So according to Rabbi, there is no chiyuv teruma in this case. So there is no. So what was your shaila that we bound? You're allowed to. Obviously, you're allowed to mail mililis. So it's gemar malacha leteruma. According to Rabbi, you're right. Because Rabbi was with it. There's no gemar malacha leteruma because it's not going to chayiv teruma at that moment. And our mission is going to follow Beis Yehuda. Now the last shaila is even according to Beis Yehuda, I'll find you a hichitimtza as to gemar malacha when it comes to Truma and Yom Tiv. I could also find you Kegoyin Shehichnis Shibolim Lasis Mehen Isa Benim Lachaleim Lamelim B'Yom Tiv. The Tuvala B'Yemei. To start, Rashi explained by Riches here. So what Rashi is like this? There's 3 gedarim here. If you had the kavanah to gather the replicate to gather the Shibolim to make an Isa out of it. Then, as we said, and now you decided to take a few of them and take a snack to eat it, like we said before. Kulam made it. There's no chiv of truma because the kavanah was to go till the end, and you're not there yet. So therefore, there's no bar malach yet. And in the interim, you're allowed to go eat what you want. The shaila is, and also if you gathered it l'meilon lechatchila, that was our machlekes the 2 tanoim. What happens if I gathered it lases isa? So there's already toiras. It's toiras truma alein, according to everyone. Because according to Beis Yehuda, he says if you gather l'meilon, there's no toiras truma alein because it will never come to truma. But if you gather it leisa, so you have a toiras truma alein. So normally you will have to wait till the gemar melacha in order to be chuyiv truma. But I decided to take that whole pile and do mail to be mailon to go eat it with snacks. So here you have a hechetimtza that Rabbi Yisrael is going to say that he's going to agree to Rabbi that now there's a Gemara Malach already, because I already started the machshava of gathering it in order to come for Truma, in order for Isa. So to wait till the end, you don't have to anymore because Lopena decided, Nimlach decided to use it for snacks. And I said, the whole bunch is for snacks. So it already has Teras Truma. Now we have to decide for Melilos, when is the Gemar Malacha? The Gemar Malacha is right away. You don't have to wait to make out of it a kri, to make out of a pile of miruach. So here's a hechetimtza, even according to Beis Yehuda, that it's possible, even though if the Chatchil wanted to be gathered from to Meilon, you're not going to ultimately result in a chiyuv of Truma because gathering Yishabal will never result in a chiyuv of Truma. But if Chatchil, the Kavanah was to do it for Isa, so there was a Teres Truma alayim. And you have to normally wait, let's say, until next day we could do the kiri, you can have the whole pile. But now you decided that everything will be used for Meilon, so then it moves up a date, and today we're called Malachim Mechayv Truma. Because of the national, then we're going to finish. So you have also, according to a case where on Yom Tif, according to Rava, that you're allowed to be Meilon Melulus on Yom Tif if you had a whole pile and you had this Kavanah, and you're allowed to be Meilon Melulus on Yom Tif. So now it's going to be a Gemar Malach Truma. So you'll be able to take Truma on Yom Tif because you had the Gemar Malach on Yom Tif. So why does our Mishnah say that by Truma you don't have a possibility to be mechuyev with the Truma on Yom Tif itself? Look at the Shaila here. Says Dr. Gemara, the Namishkach is also going. Shehichnis Shibal Lasis Man Isa. Kavanah was to have Isa. And you had Kavanah, now you change your mind to do everything for Meilon. Beyond the Tuvala B'Yemei, it became Tevel today. Became Tevel on Yom Tif. Because now the moment you had the Kavanah to use it for Melila, now became Tevel. The moment it became Tevel, and I want to eat it now Yom Tif, I have to take Truma. And I am allowed to be male according to Rava, so I want to eat it now. It's Eichel Nefesh, so I have to take Truma. And my Truma, what does the Mishnah mean? That Truma, that you can't take Truma on Yom because you can't, there's no Gemara Malach on Yom Tif. Roiv Truma. So it means Roiv Truma. The majority of Trumas are always done before Yom Tif because this is a very removed case that a person is going to be mechuyev in the Gemara Malacha. I don't to myself. So that's what the Mishnah means. That's what our Mishnah means. Shay, let's just do the Rashi here. Then we'll stop over here. The next year we'll go into the whole sugya weiter about Truma and kidneys and dogon. Okay, let's see Rashi here. He says this svara here. The last let's see. Michayev. We've gone to now. Actually, he says it in the Machlekes. Let's do it from here. Yeah, the second to the top line. Yeah. So if you gather the shibalim to eat them a little bit at a time, I did by rubbing them out. So Rabbi says you're mechayiv. This is why you're chayiv b'truma. Don't eat aray now because there's already gemar malacha. Ad sheyafrish to take off your truma fee. Shahachnesason b'shibalin hu gemar malachton. That when you bring it in with the shibal, that is called the gemar malachton. From the kavanah was the beil melilis. Shein soifon level de goyden. It will never come ultimately to a goyden. Goyden is only made separating shaf into acher. This is called groina. This is going to be the goyden for the beil melilis. Who the pater said the gon chaksiv for hainu miruach. Miruach means smoothing out this pile of the kernels. The ein digun elo kibbutz b'kri. Digun means gathering them together and making a pile is called a kri. So pechina l'rava damar meilel according to meilon Rabbi Yehuda nami I shoris l'meilon b'yamtiv. So if you like to do on yamtiv mishkachas lo. Al kochish is a koybar masa b'melushech is as last so oparchinon or l'rava according to that. Start again. The Omar he says meilon. So now the last question is even according to Rabbi Yehuda also nami ishoris l'meilon b'yamtiv. If Rav is correct that you're allowed to be meilon melus on yamtiv, so mishkachas lo you can find a case that there's a gemar malach on yamtiv and then there comes a chiv truma. Al kochoch she's a koy you're going to force to have. To be able to be mechuyev and do taking truma, she's a koy baramasan. The mililes with milil shechnisan lasos isa. The case is you gather the shibalim lasos isa bedisha with disha umiruach to do the regular disha. You can do dosh and then you have kernel to make miruach and then anim lechaleyim lemeilan. Then you have charat you want to meilan ulatznion. And to keep it this way, Hardy means keep it this way and not to do anything else. Kulon the Meliles, entire part from Meliles, the Karchach must be made the Behur Abesi will agree in this case. The Tivlon B'Yoim, it's Tevel today. Why? Shenim Lechaleyen, the day Tivlon B'Yoim Shemechaleim. It's Tevel the day that you had Charata, and now it's going to be the Gemar Malacha. The Kivan Deichnistan L'Shem Geiren Gamor, because you gather them in order to make a Geiren Gamor. Lisa, right? Yardo lehen toiras trumais maisres. So then this whole pile already has this. Later on, it's going to just move it up to a price before. Nasis hachnasase geiren. So the gathering it becomes already its geiren. Means it's gemar malacha. V'hamayla b'yamtiv al karchei kodem trumasan. And if you're giving mail on yamtiv, you have to first take truma. That's the hechitimtza. This is the hechitimtza basically. So the next year, we're going to go into the next union of Machlekes Mazamodin from Trumas and Isis. Okay. End session. Good.
A guy got married, Balchuva. His wife makes challah the first Shabbos